Welcome back to Reddit Story Time. Today we have four incredible stories. Let's dive right in.
Story number 1. The Stranger on the Bench. There's a particular kind of magic in the small, unnoticed rituals that strangers share without ever speaking a word. It started simply enough. A person walking to work each morning noticed an older man sitting on a bench outside a coffee shop. The first few times, they passed without acknowledgement. Just two people sharing the same stretch of sidewalk, wrapped in their own thoughts. Then one morning, on a whim, they smiled and waved. The old man waved back, and something shifted. The next day they looked for each other. A wave, a smile, a little nod that said, "I see you and I'm glad you're here." Some days it was just a quick wave across the street. Other days, one of them would make some ridiculous little gesture, and the other would laugh out loud. They never learned each other's names. They never stopped to talk. But that brief moment of connection became the best part of the morning, a tiny anchor of warmth in the rush of daily life. It went on for months, rain or shine, good days and bad. Just two strangers choosing to acknowledge each other's existence with a wave and a smile. In a world that often feels disconnected and cold, there's something deeply comforting about that. Not every relationship needs words. Not every connection needs a name. Sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is simply show up day after day and let another person know that their presence matters. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything.
And the verdict, pure wholesome.
Story number 2, the little girl who returned the library book. Sometimes the most touching acts of kindness come from the smallest people, acting on the simplest instincts. A library book sat forgotten on the roof of a car. The driver pulled away oblivious, and the book tumbled somewhere onto the street between the library and home. When the owner realized it was gone, they went back searching, walked the blocks, checked the gutters. Nothing. The book was gone. And they figured that was the end of it. Maybe someone picked it up. Maybe it ended up in a storm drain. Either way, it was lost. 2 days passed. Then a knock at the door. Standing there was a little girl from a few houses down, holding the library book with both hands carefully like it was something precious. She said she'd found it on the sidewalk, and she'd walked over specifically to bring it back because she knew it belonged to the library and she wanted to make sure it got home. Think about that for a moment. This child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, found a book on the street, and her instinct wasn't to keep it or ignore it. Her instinct was to figure out who it belonged to and return it. She walked to a neighbor's house, a house she may never have visited before, just to do the right thing. No one told her to. No reward was expected. She just did it because it was kind, and because kindness, for children, is often the default setting before the world teaches them otherwise. The book was returned to the library. No late fees. No problem, but that small moment stayed. A reminder that goodness doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't need an audience or a camera. Sometimes it's just a little girl, holding a book with both hands, walking to a neighbor's door.
And the verdict, pure wholesome.
Story number 3. The tomato that started a friendship. Some of life's best friendships begin with a mistake. A simple wrong turn, a knocked door that wasn't meant to be knocked. On a quiet Saturday, someone was dropping something off for a friend in an apartment building. Distracted, they knocked on the wrong door. An older woman opened it. The mistake was immediately obvious. Apologies tumbled out, embarrassed and rapid. But the woman just laughed. A warm, genuine laugh. She said the visitor looked more embarrassed than she was, and that was saying something. Before the visitor could escape, the woman gestured to a small container garden outside her door. Tomatoes growing in little pots. She'd picked too many that morning, she said. Would they like to take one? One tomato. That's all it was, but they stayed. They talked for a few minutes about gardening, even though the visitor knew almost nothing about plants. The woman didn't mind. She was happy to share what she knew. The conversation was easy and unhurried, the kind that happens when neither person is in a rush to be anywhere else. The next week, the visitor walked by again, this time on purpose. They stopped to say hello. The woman was outside, tending her garden. They talked again, longer this time, and somehow, without planning it, this became a thing. A weekly visit. The wrong door that was supposed to be a quick, awkward mistake became the best part of the week. A friendship built on tomatoes and conversation, on the simple willingness of two people to slow down and be present with each other. It's a reminder that the moments we don't plan are sometimes the ones that matter most. That connection doesn't require an algorithm or a shared interest. Sometimes it just requires knocking on the wrong door and being open to what's on the other side.
And the verdict, pure wholesome.
Story number 4. The gift of a first wheelchair. Sometimes the people who see us most clearly aren't the ones we expect. For months, a young woman had been losing the ability to walk even short distances. Her legs and feet were in constant pain. She needed a wheelchair, not as a surrender, but as relief. A way to take the pressure off, to live without hurting every moment. But her parents downplayed it. They pushed her to walk more, to put more pressure on legs that were already struggling. They didn't see the pain, or perhaps they didn't want to. So when she moved out, one of the first things she did was start looking into getting a wheelchair through her health insurance. The process was slow. The worry about cost was constant. Would it be hundreds of dollars? Would insurance cover it? Weeks passed in uncertainty. Then her boyfriend's mom stepped in. This woman, who was not her mother, who had no obligation, who could have simply stayed out of it, looked at the situation and saw exactly what was needed. She bought the young woman her first wheelchair. Not a loaner, not a hand-me-down, a brand new chair chosen with care, given freely. The young woman described it as the best gift she'd ever received. Beautiful, she called it, not because of what it looked like, but because of what it meant. Freedom from constant pain. The ability to move through the world without suffering. Dignity, restored by someone who chose to see her clearly when the people who should have didn't. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes family is the person who notices you're hurting and does something about it. The person who doesn't ask if you really need help but simply shows up with exactly what you need. That wheelchair wasn't just a chair. It was proof that she was seen and that she mattered.
And the verdict, pure wholesome.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more. See you next time.